Greetings. Today I'd like to do a quick overview of the DISH Pro timecode generator from DISH.TC, which is not to be confused with Dish Networks, the satellite TV provider. This is a timecode generator that syncs to GNSS constellation. You might think of GNSS more as GPS, but it's really multiple constellations. There's GPS from the US, there's GLONASS from Russia, there's Baidu from China, etc., right? And this has got a modern GPS receiver chip in it, so it can use satellites from all the constellations to get a fix, just like most modern cell phones and so forth do these days. So what would you use this for? Well, their idea is that you can use this as your timecode generator or generators for all of your devices. And because they sync to atomic time, is an important note. I'll get to that in a bit. It doesn't matter. There's very simple controls on this. The only thing that this thing has is a dial for what frame rate you're recording at, so that the timecode it generates is outputting the correct frame rate, and that's it. It's got a power button, BNC out, and in the battery compartment there is also a USB port. If it'll focus, right, USB port for firmware updates. And that's it for the interface. It's really simple. You don't need to worry about jamming your different generators together and so forth. And price-wise, it's not too bad. It's about $360 US, which is in line with a lot of other vendors' timecode products. Yes, Deity and Tentacle Sync have some units that are a little bit less expensive than that, but this is in line with the Betsos that I use. You're using other ones like Ambient or Timecode Systems, which is now Atomos or whatever. Those are even more expensive. So you could realistically just buy a bunch of these and use them for your timecode devices. In my case, I already am fairly invested in Betso, and so I only purchased one of these, and what I'm doing with it is using it to jam my main Betso, which is this S-Box 2, and then from this I distribute via the wireless of the Betso to all the TCX receivers that I have on camera, sound bag, etc. Or not sound bag, because this is the thing in the sound bag. If we turn it on, and this is one of the things I don't like about it, this button is not the greatest. It doesn't always recognize you turning it on, but it's super sensitive to turning it off. It is slightly recessed, but it's still a little too easy, I think, to accidentally turn off. And I'm currently indoors, so I don't have a great view of the sky. And one of the things is that because this is dependent on GPS or GNSS entirely, it takes it a little bit for it to start up. And that time varies by a couple of things. On a cold start, because it doesn't have, your phone gets assistance data from the cellular network, which means it already has the almanac, it knows what satellites are around and so forth, and it can start up pretty quickly. This has to download the almanac from the satellites themselves, so a cold start takes about 15 minutes. When I turn it on here indoors, because I only have the windows that are see where I'm pointing there this direction. It doesn't have a full view of the sky because I've got building and whatnot behind me and above me. I'm in a mid-rise building, and so it doesn't have a great view of the sky, and it takes it roughly 2 minutes on average to start up with a warm start. When I take this outside, where I have a much better view of the sky, albeit still a bunch of tall buildings around and whatnot, it starts up, does a warm start in about 10 seconds. So moral there is, if you are using this in an environment where you don't have a clear view of the sky, turn it on outdoors before you come in so that it can get a sync. And one of the things it does is it also has a real temperature compensated crystal oscillator, TCXO. Even if it loses view of the sky, it will maintain time accurately for a day more, right? The drift is something like half of a frame per 24 hours, I think was what the specs said. Either way, comparable to other timecode generators, you know, most modern ones are in that range, right? The Betsos say a third of a frame. It's a wash, right? And as you can see, it's still not blinking green yet. When it starts blinking green is when it has a fix. The other thing to note is that, if you recall, I mentioned earlier atomic time. One of the other things this does not do is account for the difference between atomic time and UTC. So the difference there is that UTC has leap seconds, and there's currently, I think it's 37, maybe it's 38 seconds difference between atomic time and UTC. So when you look at the time code being output from this thing, it won't match exactly with like what your phone would say, because your phone is using UTC plus whatever your local offset is, and this is using atomic time. The other thing, so another quick look at it, it does have a 1/4 20 screw mount on the back. So you could get a little cold shoe that screws into that, you know, and then stick it into a cold shoe on a camera. You could attach it to a magic arm. You could attach it to a little ball head from any number of vendors, right? And then it's pretty light, so you don't need a lot of support for it. And, you know, it's comparable in size to a lot of the other timecode devices that are out there these days. And it is, unfortunately, still hasn't gotten a fix since I turned it on, right? Still trying. That's like the biggest thing is again, if you don't have a clear view of the sky, it's going to take it a little while for it to start up. It is a plastic case, which it kind of needs to be because it needs to be able to receive the satellite signals, and satellite signals don't penetrate metal certainly very well. The battery door pops off maybe a little easy for my liking, but otherwise, you know, the build is, can't really complain about it, right? Some of the other timecode boxes are similar, although, yeah, okay, you know, a Betso is metal, an ambient is metal, but, you know, tentacle and kind of hard plastic like this as well. The other thing it does is it sets the user bits to the date in the format of YYYY MMDD, so universal standard format, and that will roll over at night, or at least at, you know, Zulu for atomic time. And that's kind of about it. You know, I did a previous video on the Plura ELC for syncing network time protocol out to linear time code to use with timecode sync, and I do still use that device quite a bit. The one thing there is you have to have obviously some kind of connection to a device that has internet connectivity, which, you know, use it with a PEP-Link or other, you know, mobile cellular router, that works, but sometimes you're going light, you don't want to carry that, so you can do this. You can also, this is nice for remote productions as well, right? You give these to people You could be across town and have stuff that's, you know, 3 different teams on different parts, and they're all synced together because with atomic time from GNSS constellation, they're all going to be pretty much in sync with each other. GNSS accuracy is about 60 nanoseconds. That is 1/500,000th of a frame at 30 frames per second. So this is way more accurate than anything that you're doing with regular frames. And so you know, even if they were off by a hair from each other because one's in, you know, the West Coast and one's in the East Coast, or, you know, you're across town from each other or whatever, it doesn't matter because they're so much more accurate than any frame rate you might be recording at. At any rate, I hope that helps. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments down below, and I will try to get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks.